Well, we did talk a couple of weeks ago, didn't we, about getting some more guests on. And
Here we are.
We've got another guest.
Yeah.
We're going to introduce him in a minute. So this is really us spreading our wings. And
Just so that people don't have to listen to us all the time.
Well,
Going on.
someone knows what we're talking about as well.
Well, exactly.
Change.
Depends what the subject is.
Yeah, we could change the topic of this podcast.
Yeah.
And then just talk about, well, I happen to know that our guest today is a professional football linesman. We could go into that.
Assistant referee.
Assistant referee, sorry. There you go. See, I got it right. All right, let's start this podcast then, shall we?
Very good.
Hello, and you're watching or listening to the SME Growth Podcast from Wellmeadow, a weekly podcast where we try and come up with all sorts of different angles of the trials, tribulations, challenges, tools and tips for helping you grow your business. And as we were just saying in our little preamble there, we've got a guest today. So joining me, Dave and Rich, we've got Glenn Aston. Good afternoon, Glenn.
Good afternoon, Dave.
Thanks for coming in.
That's my pleasure.
Brave man coming in and
Subjecting yourself.
putting
to
yourself on the SME Growth Podcast.
Well, as you touched on, it's nothing like running the line at Nottingham Forest against Leicester.
Yeah, you've coped with a lot worse than this.
I've been
I'm
called
sure.
a lack of hair something.
And everything in between.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
So we worked together a few years ago now at
It is, yeah.
a company that you used to be the managing director of, and that had very interesting times, both good and bad, all sorts. And we thought it'd be great to maybe just get some reflections on that. It's a few years ago now, isn't it, that you left?
It
there?
is. I joined Ultra Furniture in 1999.
Right, okay.
I think the MBO was delivered in 2003.
Okay.
Part of the Christy Tyler Group. Christy Tyler Group was going through difficulties at the time.
Yeah.
They decided to go high end, and they created Sofa Brands International, which was the Duresta, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And the rest of the companies were offered the option to do MBO just prior to Christy Tyler going into administration.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we were all forewarned about it going out into admin, and we got a very short time frame to deliver the MBO,
Yeah.
which we achieved on July the 1st.
Wow.
We were told originally it was going to be July the 31st, but it was July the 1st.
Came forward. Yeah.
Classic solicitor speak. We delivered the MBO at 1:30 a.m. I think it was. on
This is
July
20
the
years ago.
It is, yes.
Wow. And initially you were the FD of that
FD,
business,
yeah.
and then became the MD later
We
on.
were 5 directors. I think at the one stage 4 of us had 22.5% and one had 10, I think it was.
Yeah, okay.
The sales director. And we moved it forward. Furniture has a history of having the salesperson as the MD. Historically, that worked. One of my previous MDs was a brilliant salesman and needed to be the forefront of the business.
So it worked well for that, yeah.
Yeah. So, and we had a good couple of years.
Yeah, a couple of years. Wow, yeah. When we knew you'd had more than a good couple of years,
We
yeah.
had a very good run.
So you mentioned the name of the company, Ultra Furniture, and sofas you mentioned there. Just tell us a little bit more about what actually then was the product that you
Ultra
designed.
Furniture was primarily based in the mid to the lower to middle sector of the furniture trade.
Right.
We kind of manufactured very high volume, low margin.
And we're talking
product.
soft furnishings here, not
Soft furnishings,
tables and chairs,
We-
and wood and stuff like that.
Your 3-piece suite is the classic situation, but very quickly moved. Everything's based around suite equivalents, and it was based on a 3-seater, a 1-seat, and 2 chairs, and variants of that.
And that's how the industry worked.
It was, and still is, I believe.
And you didn't sell your own brand so much as be a subcontractor to the other big brands.
Yes, we sold into the major retailers. They would come to us with a design brief or a design spec, and our design director, who was very good, he could do everything from designing the frame through to the sewing to the finished
He
product.
worked wonders. I remember seeing some of the stuff he produced.
He was brilliant at that job, and he did a very good job.
Yeah.
When we did the MBO, we had several large customers, which we would have liked to retain.
Yeah.
But that proved very difficult during the stages, and we fell into the trap of thinking that the one was very good.
So that's how it evolved, and we're going to come on to that. But just interested to reflect on some of the other challenges of running that sort of business. And one of them certainly was around bringing all the material in from the Far East and coping with last-minute changes of opinion and all that sort of thing.
Most of the fabric was Far East, China, and that provided its difficulties on supply chains because the production director had a very slick running operation. He'd been there 30 years, so he knew it inside out, and he got it worked. You know, he did his forecast on supply chain on the fabric particularly, but that did prove challenging, especially with fluctuations in currency thereafter, because we had no scope to move our selling prices.
And you're always having to design to a price point, weren't you?
Very much so. What we found is whatever we sold it to the major retailer for, they would kind of double it. So we were always price captive. If there was a 399 suite, 399 three-seater out there, generally our target price in 1999, 2003 was around 199.
Right, wow.
But that was quickly forced down.
And that's the retail price that the retailer would sell it for, so that includes VAT.
Yes.
So if anybody's getting in starting to get a feel for what you're having to make a three-piece suite for here, something that could sell for 199, it's incredible, isn't it, to think?
It is, and you know the reason we did well in the start is that we could produce very quickly. All of our operatives were on piecework, both in the wood mill, the sewing area, cutting area, and the upholstery area.
Yeah,
everything was.
It was an incredible operation, wasn't it? I remember when we used to walk around it. It
going
was
in and just like
high of activity. I've never seen anywhere so high energy, really.
Well, when I walk people around, I always said, don't stand still too long in upholstery because you might get upholstered.
Sewn into the sofa.
Be in the seat,
Yeah. So it was a great little business at the start, which is why we invested in.
Well, and it worked very well for a good long number of years.
We had a good run.
Yeah, but quite difficult customers to sell into, weren't they?
Big time. I tried to cap the certain level of volume into certain retailers, but when they've got you got control in a way, they can say to you, "Well, you either supply that or you don't have anything."
You tend to get little choice.
To have to. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy looking back.
But if they complain as well, they had this ability to do chargebacks, didn't they?
There were debit notes raised. Sometimes we challenge them.
Yeah.
And they'd say, well, the next time we have some loose threads, you can come and cut them off yourself if you want.
Right, okay,
And I could never guarantee that we would have zero loose threads. But
you'd never get a chance to really see the offending item, would you?
No,
just
because it's been shipped out to the customer and they got their deliveries, but we get a regular supply of
it was almost like a debit note creation machine, just part of the business model.
It was
brutal.
In my opinion, it was their way of creating extra profit.
Yeah, no one.
Just thinking about like sort of governance type of thing. You mentioned you had 4 shareholders equal. Eventually you got to 25% shareholding each. What's the kind of? Would you do that again? Is that what were the challenges? Was it good to have equality, or did that throw up other issues?
It only became an issue as such when we identified that we got a weak link in the area that we thought. Both of you helped manage that situation and provide advice to there.
But decision making is tougher, isn't it? When you've got 4 equals, you've got no.
It
no
was,
majority.
when we launched the Reach promotion, philosophy, it was hard to bring that. Everybody was behind it as the front of a company.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure it was given the full impact that it deserved at the time.
So like Richard said, would you do that again if you were in business with 3 other directors? Would you say the 4 by 25% works?
I'd probably structure it different now. One has to have the say, shall we say, to make sure that everybody comes along on that line.
Yeah.
Although I will say that the production director and the design director did come with me. Unfortunately, age was catching up with individuals. We wanted to change things on the production line. But we were also then, at that time, we were also battling with ever-increasing costs and ever-decreasing selling prices.
And demanding customers.
And very demanding customers.
So where did it start to go wrong then, do you think? What was the first signs that this long run of very profitable performance was starting to come to an end?
looking back, it's when we started to lose some of our bigger customers,
Right.
and one customer was becoming too dominant.
Because it didn't drop the total turnover when you lost those other customers. It's just, it shifted the balance, and the other customers took up slack.
We'd lose 2 models in one customer and gain one at another one.
So it wasn't a turnover problem for a long time.
It was being dominated by one
Yes.
big customer. And
was that a gradual thing? Did that happen? It wasn't. Was it
we
overnight?
we lost a couple over a period, but then it didn't matter in that some of our retailers weren't in the same marketplace. So we were producing better product for like Furniture Village, etc., who wouldn't be competing in the 399 3-seater market as our others. But some of our other people were also competing with the big retailer, and we were encouraged to move away.
Right, encouraged by that customer, the dominant customer.
Yeah.
So what starts off as being a slight, higher percentage share of your sales than maybe you'd like, ends up just getting worse and worse.
It's a snowball.
You can't hold back the tide almost.
And well, you just couldn't stop it. You know, and ultimately, Ultra went into administration. We rescued it, but then we were given 30 days notice they weren't going to be our customer anymore.
Yeah.
And I needed 60 days because I got 2 big customers coming on board.
Yeah.
And
do you sense that the big customer had some ulterior motive in that, or were they just doing what they were going to do anyway, regardless?
I saw it coming because we had the regular 399 slot on DFS's floor, but then a Polish company, we were alternated. They had one promotion, we had the next. Then, so I saw something was happening there with that. But
so they got another supplier in the wings that they were starting to test out.
Because they were also the single biggest manufacturer in the country as well. They manufactured a lot of their own furniture. Yeah. So they knew what costs were doing, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
But we couldn't control that. I'd got better control. If I'd have had another 30 days before the second admin, then we would have been much better equipped to go forward.
And what was the board discussion like at this time when all this was happening?
It was almost leaving it to me.
Because it's kind of a crisis, isn't it, when that type of stuff
It is, and I was as upfront as I could be with the guys. Unfortunately, at that time, the production director had gone and we got a new one in, so it was, the 2 shareholders were just the design director and myself. And I shared with him as much as I could, but he kind of carried on designing furniture because I got these other 2 big customers that were almost there. I can remember going down to a big presentation in London with the one retailer, and I've been there all day because it was a massive conference covering lots of non-food product.
Right.
And then the buyer saw me at almost 4 o'clock and said, "I knew you were here. I've been chasing you all day."
Right.
And I said, "What's this?" She says, "I want you to make our furniture."
Great. Brilliant.
And I'm thinking, oh dear, how am I going to get through this now?
Yeah.
So I had to keep working without letting them know that there was a potential wind-up of that company on the horizon.
Yeah. Ready to carry on through and be able to supply this other customer.
Yeah. And
so you really feel that in the end it was for a matter of 30 days difference would have made the difference between the...
Would have made a huge difference. In essence, the first time we saved the company, I think we should have structured finances a little bit different and got, we struggled to get through that with the administrator, but it did need more capital behind it.
Yeah.
It might have been better if I could have gone out and got some help instead of trying to do it myself and the design director on our own.
Yeah.
If we could have diluted our shareholding to bring someone in with more backing.
Do you think in that sort of industry, thinking furniture here, homewares and so on, that there aren't that many players out there, so that you can't really have 10 customers all with decent volume, or can you? What sort of market is it like that?
It depends really on what you set your business up. We were set up as high volume, recover the fixed overheads.
So just give us a feel. What's high volume? How many sofas a week were you doing?
We were doing suite equivalents. We've been doing north of 2,000 suites per week.
I mean, that's mind-boggling, isn't it, to think that just that volume of product, how many wagons must have been turning up to to take it away.
And that's at our pump we were doing that.
Yeah.
It was 200 plus 300 suites.
And quite seasonal, isn't it? The run up to Christmas is
well,
that's a busy period.
that becomes crazy because at any time you can be late with production because you just said we've had a supply problem.
Yeah.
But if people want a new 3-piece suite for Christmas Day, then unfortunately you've got no. So we cut off our order book at a certain point, and the production director then is ticking off every order daily up to, and that's the only time of the year where I've walked around the bay and there's no furniture in the bay.
It just cleans out.
It cleans it out.
So January you sort of start again on low whip, building up from scratch.
Well, you're watching the order book because clearly we've delivered in all the new product for the Christmas Day and New Year's Day promotions. I remember back in, I think it was 2000, we took in orders on 2 models north of 9,000 suites.
Wow.
And they all got to be delivered in 5 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
This is alongside, these are just on one customer.
Right,
we had to that's when we were part of Christy Tyler, then we had to subcontract that to some of our.
So it sounds like a brutal industry to be in. You know, people talk about automotive being tough, but what you're talking about there with short changes of direction, very opinionated on what designs work or not, these volumes you're talking about, short lead times, and then these quite aggressive customers that you can't really say no to.
It is. It was challenging, you know. While it's working, you just roll with the flow.
And for years it did.
Yeah, so and it did, and it still does for a lot of people. You know, upholstery in the West Midlands, where we were based, was a huge employment. And I've got a good friend who I haven't seen for a while. He set up in just outside Dudley, and he's doing very well now. Yeah, but he sells high end.
Okay, so the dodgy area that you'd found yourself in was this high volume, low end, so very, very cost sensitive part of the market, but with these huge customers that basically say, you know, jump and you have to say how high.
Absolutely, that is the question.
Even to the point where they could tell you to get rid of other customers if you want to keep their business.
They wouldn't put it that bluntly, but they would.
That's how it.
They would leave you in no doubt where they hinting you take the business.
If someone was listening now and they find themselves in a sort of similar position where they think, you know, actually we're getting pretty concentrated on a few customers, what sort of advice would you be? What sort of things would you be telling them to think about or action?
I'd quickly action another marketing plan. You have to, because if they get control of your order book, then you're out of control of your business. And unless you've got a firm contract, and our contract was only the length of the product, and a promotion would last 6 weeks. Right. And after that, there was no guarantee. If you've got a contract that says, okay, we're going to order 8 suites every 6 weeks for the next 12 months, then that works if there's a firm written contract, because you can work with that. Where we were working, as I say, we got 6 weeks and that was it. Yeah. You know, when I was called into that, when he came to see me about that meeting, I said, it was just after the January exhibition, which is the biggest exhibition at the NEC. And I said, great, because he'd been on the stand and said, I'll come and see you. And we were expecting the order for the next 399 model. And I was told then, he said, in front of my design director as well, and said, we're not going to deal with you anymore.
And that was that.
That was it.
Bolt out of the blue.
Yeah, complete shock.
Yeah, and you knew what that meant for the business.
Well, I actually said to the guy, you know, this closes the business down. I said, can you give us one more promotion? I said, because I've got plans, but he knew what plans meant. I'm going to supply somebody else. So.
Yeah. So
it wasn't in their interest to keep you alive then.
No.
Bizarrely, even though you've been a reliable supplier for many years.
Yeah.
They didn't want you to be supplying someone else.
No. Well, that's my perception.
And there's quite long sort of lead times, isn't there, into new customers? It wasn't as if you could sort of say, oh, we need to diversify, let's go and find some new customers, and next month you've got them. You've got to get into the design cycle as well, haven't you?
Well, yes, because they've planned their promotions. A lot of the other people have spring bank holiday, etc., etc. So they've already planned in. So you're looking at least 3 to 6 months out before you can start to get things on the shop floor. Then they have to price establish if there's going to be a sale.
Yeah.
So you have to then work with that. So it's not a quick switch on.
And so that means they have to put it for sale at the higher price for a period of time. That's just a law before you can call something on sale, isn't it? How long a period was that?
Historically, I think we've delivered into stores 4 weeks before we do the mass delivery.
Right. So all that lead time just adds up, doesn't it? You get the approval, then you got to do the design, you got to do some test pieces, and you got to get the stuff on the shop floor for the price establishment period. Then you hopefully go into the sale period.
Yeah.
So it's almost even though you can see, even when I guess you can start to see the issue, it's not like you can just pull a lever and fix it, is it? It's a huge amount of time, and
it's not
run up to
putting a plaster on a cut and
to change this.
It's a long process, and as I said, during that process, I was close to delivering 2 major retailers. We did bring them on board later, but this was after Ultra had gone once again.
Yeah,
and they kind of knew that I'd been not misleading them, but not being as upfront with the truth and the state of the financial state of Ultra at the time.
Knowing how close to the wind it was, those last few days.
Yes.
Yeah. So do you think you could have had any other strategy that would have worked operating in that field, or did you almost need to have a different market that you're addressing at the same time? Less volatile, maybe. Like you're saying, the 8 suites a week all year is a different market. It's not 2,000 suite equivalents a week.
No.
You need a lot of those.
We should have brought in a better marketing person earlier.
Yeah, to open up other markets.
Somebody who's already got the connections with.
Yeah,
it's very much, although it's changed over the period, but it was very much on if they like you, they'll deal with you.
Yeah,
and we hadn't got that towards the end. You've got to be out there entertaining. You've got to be out taking them out and entertaining.
Is that type of industry?
It very much was. It very much was at the time. Yeah. And you've got to be in there and taking them around and showing them what you can do.
And you're not talking about that long ago, when this all...
No. This is not that long ago at all, but it still is. You got to be in their face. The world is a shrinking violet. People. Chinese imports are coming into the country like there's no tomorrow now.
Yeah, sure.
Far East imports leather from India and.
Yeah. Is that even competitive then? If you're shipping in, large products like sofas from China, given the shipping costs and the delays?
Yeah, and basically you're moving a box of air because that's what a 3-piece suite is.
There's a lot of air in it. Yeah.
But they still sell it at very low prices.
Yeah.
And the higher the product, the higher value of the product, if it's leather and whatever, then it does work.
Yeah, but
at
for
the 399, it doesn't work.
No. So they needed UK suppliers, or
Definitely.
European. You talked about Polish suppliers.
Yeah.
They can get them in quick enough. Yeah. So if you were to have put a limit on how much any one customer could have of your capacity in percentage terms, is there even a number you can put on that, or would it have been a waste of time anyway?
Ideally, I would have liked my break-even to be spread between 6 to 8 customers.
Right, okay.
And then the independents, etc., which is the cream, where you make slightly more margin because they're better products, to top it all up.
That's the icing on the cake.
That would have been around 12.5% if I could.
Yeah, so that's a lot lower than it ended up being, where you were well north of 50%, weren't you?
Well north of 60 to 70 at the end.
Yeah, incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
But like I say, it was like a juggernaut, that snowball thing you talked about.
It's how you stop that.
Yeah. And of course, it's profitable. That wasn't a bad thing in the moment. You can see it on the risk register. You see that, my goodness, we shouldn't have it, but you're making loads of money out of it.
Well, we found we delivered the MBO and then we structured all the finances, confidential invoice discounting. I remember when I renewed that after 3 years, I was offered such improved terms. It was unbelievable. And then the crash came in 2008, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it was they immediately, having given me better terms, wanted to pull the deal 2 months later.
Yeah. Well, I can pull you under just on that. But you saw through that.
We walked through that. We went with a alternative bank, which worked well, very well. But it's how volatile that industry is.
Yeah.
The crash just came in, and then banks being what they are, they said, we got to have a review, and it costs you 50 grand to have the review. And you think, no, if I got 50 grand, I really wouldn't be talking to you. But
sure.
But it's a roller coaster. I've learned a lot from it. Hindsight is 20/20 vision. And literally, like I was talking today, a company that we may be taking to market on another part of my business now.
Yeah.
I've said you need to watch. One of your problems could be your dominance by one customer.
Yeah. So when you think back now then to those times, do you generally remember it as a very positive period, or are you scarred by how it finished?
Predominantly, I loved it. I was there from 99 through to 2018, I think it was something like 17, 18.
Yeah.
14, 15 years of that was great.
Yeah.
And we had a good time.
A good run.
A very good run.
Yeah.
But with hindsight, I would have made some changes now to the way we run that. The plant needed investing in and whatever, but we kind of didn't look that way.
Yeah, okay.
There could have been more automative cutting. And
so a bit more automation. Marketing, you've mentioned, you needed to
Definitely.
make sure that was taken more seriously, which is hard to do when you're full and you're always got orders coming in that are filling your capacity and more. And someone says we need to do some marketing, you look a bit mad, but it was because you needed to shift the mix.
It was spreading the load.
Yeah, you need different customers.
I remember when I first joined, we as I said, we had 6 or 7 customers, all doing north of 2 million each.
Yeah. And would you have reacted differently to the big customer that eventually took you down? Would you have tried harder to just say no and limit the amount you do, or do you think that would have just led to an earlier demise?
With hindsight, I think we should have done.
Mm-hmm.
People are surviving now that are not supplying that retailer.
Yeah. And in a way, even if you'd have lost them earlier on, while you still had another 3 or 4 who weren't maybe acting quite the same way, that would have been easier to survive.
Yeah, with hindsight, we should have.
Yeah. And the reason you didn't, it's not because there was disagreement at board level, it's just that would have taken...
No, we kind of inherited it. I know we had a good run after we did the MBO, but through the group philosophy was, they tried to create sectors. I think the West Midlands sector, I can't remember the exact names now, but what they basically meant was high end, middle end, middle to bottom, and then bottom.
Yeah.
And we were placed we got a sister company in Scunthorpe and one in Kidderminster somewhere, and we were all like in that group.
Right.
So they would try, and then they allocated customers across those.
So that's right from MBO back in 2002-03. That's what you inherited.
Yeah, and we should have reacted then once we got control.
Broaden the customer base. Say no to the big sort of dominant one, if you like, and use the marketing to spread.
Without a doubt, we should, that. But that's the benefit of hindsight.
Well, that's kind of why it's an interesting discussion to have now. Several years on, the immediate aftermath is now the dust has settled. You've gone on to other brighter and better things. And
as I said, we had a great run. It's an interesting part of my life. I got remarried and everything else. So I wouldn't change anything of that side. The business needed managing differently. Yeah. And it would still be around today had we done that.
I'm hoping that people listening to it get something from that, because I think it's a very salutary tale. Yeah.
Let's hope, because the big beasts are great while it's working well.
It must be the same if you're selling into Tesco or one of the big automotives. There's lots of industries where there are very dominant players out there, and while it's going well, it seems fine, but actually being...
Well, I think after I exited Ultra, and it was run by another group, Tesco was a big customer.
Their furniture side,
and they pulled out.
Right.
And then the previous owners, the owners then at the last Ultra, pulled the plug immediately because it was a huge part of the business.
Yeah.
So it can be, that these beasts are great to have as a badge, but you have to manage. Don't let them manage you more than... It has to be a team, or you get a contract in place that's secure. Yeah. Not short term.
And try and limit your customers to 12.5%, maybe 15% tops, rather than letting anyone...
That's the target.
But stand firm. I think that's the problem. As soon as you give a little bit of an exception to that, you can't stop it. It just keeps growing and growing.
Because if they say to you, we want you to do this model, and you say no, they'd say, well, we're going to take those from you. Yeah. If that is said to you, it should tell you how much you rate.
Yeah, that's the warning sign.
It is. It's huge.
Yeah.
But we didn't see it at the time.
Yeah.
again, I repeat, that's looking backwards. We should have said
benefit,
because it also then says to other customers, are they more important than us?
It takes quite a lot of courage to do that, though, doesn't it? When it's all going well and you can make money off it, and you're sitting there, it's like.
Again, I'm saying it with hindsight now, Rich.
It's sort of.
If somebody had said that I was going to say, I would say it now.
Yeah.
But a younger, less experienced Glenn would not have done it.
Yeah.
It's only the benefit of hindsight.
Well, you learn from your mistakes, and hopefully you learn from other people's as well. So hopefully that equivalent of the younger Glenn is listening now and has picked up on this and has probably already been pricking their conscience as a problem. Maybe this will galvanise them into doing something more.
People react now. That's why I've got the new businesses, and we support other businesses similar to yourselves and whatever. Yeah. But it's kind of advising them if they want to take their businesses to market, and that's the first thing that flags up if there's a dominance of one or two customers. Yeah. Because it's a huge risk, and the first thing I say is watch your contract. Yeah. If it's if they say it's a rolling 3 month, well, I say, oh dear.
Yeah. That's the red flag.
It is. Yeah. It's huge. But if you can make enough money in those 3 months, then do it. If it's the last 3 months of yours, then
and that's kind of how it works.
Absolutely. You've got to work with these people.
Really appreciate that, Glenn. Thanks for coming in and being so frank about that experience. As you say, really interesting chapter in your life, and we lived part of that journey.
You did, and you helped through that process, both of you, at the time, I tell you.
That was interesting times.
Yeah.
But very useful. So thank you very much for watching or listening today. That's another episode of the SME Growth Podcast with Glenn Aston, who's been very kind to come in as our guest today. As I ask you every week, if you can share what we're doing here with some of your business colleagues, and maybe subscribe or like our podcasts wherever you get them from. In the meantime, good luck with your businesses.